documentary interview number 2.
Get these eye crust out. Make sure I ain't crusty. Okay.
Okay. You want to state your name for the camera?
I'm Josh Cage. Maybe JL Cage someday. I don't know if I want to really change that once I kind of, get into what I do. I guess I'll see what's more marketable. What works, what doesn't.
So, how long have you been a fan of professional wrestling?
What year is it? 2016.
Yeah.
So like January 2012 is it was like around the Royal Rumble time that John Cena Kane Embrace the Hate storyline was like the first time I ever saw it. I was downstairs and my mom had it on, and then I was like, oh, what's that? I want to go watch it. That looks cool. And I went upstairs and I was like, and then it started kind of clicking what it was. It was like, oh, this is WWE. This is the wrestling that everybody that like talks about or used to talk about that I knew. So like immediately I knew it was a show. I knew it wasn't like a legitimate sport or anything like that. I knew it was entertainment. And then I think knowing that prior to being a fan, it makes it more enjoyable, that type of thing. I really like it, and I think what really made me a fan was when I saw The Rock come on Raw, and then I saw The Undertaker. I'll never forget the first episode I saw The Undertaker stand face to face with Triple H, and that return where he was like going to showdown with Triple H for the revenge for the match last year where Triple H left him like crippled. And I was just, while looking at them stare face to face is probably the very moment that I was like, this is the greatest form of entertainment I've ever seen in my life.
So, starting in that time, what are your thoughts on like the product at that time? So it was right during like the end of the PG era, and it's definitely those times where it had a very poor reception at the time. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, considering like most wrestling fans, about 79% of the wrestling audience is above the age of 21. They all had memories and they all had memories of the late 90s, which was the hottest period in wrestling, the Attitude Era, all those different things that were going on, all those crazy storylines that were, sexed up and spiced up, the different things that were going on there, Stone Cold driving out beer trucks every week, and, and then going from there to go into the Ruthless Aggression era in the mid to late thousands with like guys like Kurt Angle and John Cena with his Dr. Thugonomics gimmick, which was freaking great, which I wish would come back now, to seeing, Randy Orton, Batista, Edge, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, all that star power that just was there at the same time and that all rose at the same time, and then at about like 2008 is when you started hitting the drop off because Eddie Guerrero died. Chris Benoit had just gone through the whole murder-suicide thing, and then guys were starting to kind of, you could start to see their careers dwindle away. Like Shawn Michaels was huge for about 20 years. He was wrestling, and you had this slow thing where guys were fading away. The Shawn Michaels, Batista was gone. Then the next year, Edge was gone. So, you started to lose star power, and when you lose star power, you're starting to lose quality in the product because the guys that were under them can't hang with them, if you understand what I'm saying in that instance, where those guys excelled at, everything and had a well-rounded type of, aura about them where they had the charisma in ring, they could do everything, and then the guys under them, maybe they're good on the mic but they're not good in the ring, maybe they're good in the ring but not good on the mic, and that's where the problems started happening. And then, you know, like you said, they dropped TV 14, wanted to go with a PG product. You know, we all know why. I'm not gonna get into that on camera for future references. And you know, once it started going there, then the storyline started dropping huge in quality. You started seeing stuff like Santino Marella, even though it was funny. You started seeing stuff like Santino Marella, you know, goofing around, yelling about a cobra sock that he had on his hand, instead of seeing like Randy Orton, RKO, Stephanie McMahon, and then, you know, kiss her on the lips in front of a handcuffed Triple H, which, you know, was much more edgy. So we started losing edge, and by the time Undertaker and all that rolled around 2012, a lot of the edge from the product was gone. But during that few months build up to WrestleMania, the edge was there just enough to keep me, you know, coming back, because I was looking at Undertaker, Triple H stare face to face. And then I was looking at John Cena, or not John Cena, I was looking at The Rock give John Cena history lessons. And I was looking at The Rock, you know, flaming John Cena, you know, talking about him, talking crap, throwing all this stuff in the Boston Harbor, calling it like a tea party, you know, and then singing about John Cena, and John Cena rapping about The Rock, and, you know, it had edge to it, like an edge that we don't really get too often today. And that's what had me hooked. And then there was the feud with CM Punk and Chris Jericho. And Chris Jericho was talking about CM Punk's family. And, you know, to me, that felt freaking real at the time. I was like, wow, this dude is calling out this guy's lifestyle, and he's calling out his lifestyle like on his whole family, talking about like how it just contradicts everything he stands for, what's wrong with his family and stuff, talking about his dad, his sister being on drugs and junk, dad being an alcoholic, trying to make CM Punk drink alcohol and stuff, busting the bottle of alcohol over CM Punk's head, and then slipping and falling, which was hilarious. But like, all that going on just made it so freaking good. And that's, I think the product at that time in 2012, it was a really good product because of the few that were still able to carry the ball for WWE, being like what, 2-3 of the guys I named out of what, the 5 part-timers. So like I mentioned, CM Punk, John Cena, Triple H, Undertaker, The Rock. 3 of those guys were part-timers, 2 of those were full-time guys. So what does that tell you about what they had on a weekly basis outside of WrestleMania season? Not anything to write home about, you know.
So
that's a lot.
no,
Trying to give you content.
another thing that's I feel is notorious from, especially like 2012, was you start seeing the rise of new talent.
Daniel Bryan.
And the rise and
The Yes Movement.
Not just Daniel Bryan, but the rise of NXT, and those guys started to get called up.
Yeah, because 2012 was the first true year where like the crop of NXT was starting to like become like, you know how Macho Man would say like the cream would rise to the top. That's when the cream started rising to the top, was like early 2012, because like, look at the guys that were in NXT at the time and look at them now. Big E was in there then, and then you had Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, you know, you had, and you know, those are 4 among a few that were just like down there doing their thing, and then by the end of the year, here they all come. And you know, that was really like, you know, when I think about it now, I'm like, that's crazy to think about. That was the first true wave of NXT call-ups with Big E, and then the other 3, Rollins, Reigns, and Ambrose, being the Shield. And I think, you know, the Shield obviously had the crazy good debut at Survivor Series that will never be matched.
We'll save that for later.
Yeah, we'll save that for later. Okay. I can go all day on that subject. But Big E also, you know, coming in as what, like CM Punk and AJ's type of, or not CM Punk and AJ, but Dolph Ziggler and AJ's man toy. I'll put it that way.
No, yeah, and, we just mentioned the Shield, and what are your thoughts on them? Because they probably, I would argue, is the biggest staple in WWE history, rivaling the NWO and Evolution and all of those guys. So what are your thoughts on them and how they blew up on the scene?
I still want to believe. I want to believe no matter what, Evolution is GOAT. Evolution just... It's really hard to touch something like that. You know, Evolution was... When you think about it, listen to the star power here. And we're going to talk about the Shield the same way that I'm talking about Evolution. When I talk about star power, it was freaking Ric Flair, Triple H, Randy Orton, and Batista. Which one of those four names is not going to the Hall of Fame? Which one of those four names has not main evented a WrestleMania? Which one of those four names does not have multiple title reigns? Which one of those four names is not someone that everybody loves? You know, everybody loves those four guys, except for maybe Batista. You know, recently, you know, with his second comeback, it didn't go as well. But I don't think that Shield's like the true love and nostalgia that people still have for, you know, him and what he's done in his time in wrestling. But that I think Evolution can be touched. The Shield is a close second. If NWO didn't branch out with the Wolfpack, and then, you know, everybody was joining either side of the NWO to where it was like 100 people in it. Mm-hmm. And if it would have just stayed those three guys, the NWO would be untouchable. It wouldn't even be close, because the way they came around, what they did at the time, unprecedented. You saw what happened to the TV ratings. They shot up like a rocket. But it's just, you can have a really strong start, but your finish could be flat. And their start went from here, and the finish just went straight down. It's like a rocket that blew up in the air and turned right back around and came crashing back into the ocean. That's how I look at the NWO. The Shield, that rocket shot up and it landed on the moon before it came back. You know, that's how I look at it. Because by the time the Shield broke up and all, they didn't let anybody else in, which thank God, because remember, forever they were talking about rumors. There's gonna be another member of the Shield. There's gonna be a fourth member of the Shield. Please don't. These three guys are good on their own together. So they did what they did, got to the moon, and when they landed back from the moon, they didn't have anything else to do. So the other astronaut, Seth Rollins, decided, yeah, I'm just going to hit the other two with a chair and we can all go our separate ways. You know, and that was perfect. That's the perfect way to do it. Never a perfect time, but the perfect way.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the three members of the Shield: Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, and Seth Rollins.
I just smile every time I hear those.
Who are now the face of the company at this point. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh man, I've seen these guys wrestle so many times in person, to the point where I'm just like, I'm still in love, like, with each one of them. But I saw them as the Shield, and I watched them in person win their very first titles in WWE at Extreme Rules 2013. I'll never forget it. That was the highlight of my night, you know, watching Seth and Roman win the tag title, and then watching Dean come out and win the United States title all on the same night. It was really special. And then, you know, they got up to their heights, and then they all started coming, and then they all like went to separate ways. And then now, you know, you watch Roman Reigns main event WrestleMania. You watch Seth Rollins the year before, when Roman Reigns was also main eventing WrestleMania. You see Seth Rollins the year before cash in Money in the Bank to steal that from his former partner. And then you see Dean Ambrose just hanging out. And then they're all just like, Dean Ambrose comes out of nowhere, wins Money in the Bank, and then all in the same night, all in the exact same night. This has never happened. This is why I believe like the Shield is a close second, because not as a stable. This came when they were not a stable anymore, but Money in the Bank 2016. You know, Roman Reigns walks in as champion. Seth Rollins beats Roman Reigns clean. So that's two members of the Shield champion in the same night. Seth Rollins celebrates. Here comes Dean freaking Ambrose down the aisle. Cashes in Money in the Bank and beats Seth Rollins. All three former members of the Shield, world champion, all within a 10-minute span of each other. What does that tell you about what those guys, you know, what they mean and, you know, what their potential is, because they're all still young in, you know, as far as WWE goes. The possibilities are endless. We got the Shield triple threat, but we haven't had the Shield triple threat at WrestleMania. You know, it's inevitable. It's one of those things that you just can't pass up. And just like all staples, the Shield will come together again one day. And I think every hardcore wrestling fan, like you and myself, will probably shed some tears of joy and nostalgia. You know, it's just, Evolution came back together, NWO came back together, everybody came back together. The Shield has to do. The Rock and Sock connection came back together, dude. If the Rock and Sock connection got back together, the Shield will get back together. It's just inevitable. And when they do, like I said, greatest ever. I think their second run will put them over the top as GOAT. You know, it'll be untouchable. Evolution won't be able to touch it, especially with the current talent that's going on now. You know, can you imagine them just facing in 3-on-3 matches against like freaking, like say Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn come back together all of a sudden and they're friends again? Can you imagine a Shield? Oh, the shit. I'm just like thinking about it's making me like crazy. The Shield versus like Kevin Owens. All face. The Shield has to be heel Shield versus face Kevin Owens, face Sami Zayn, and face AJ Styles. What happens in that match? The possibilities are endless. We don't know what's gonna happen. It's crazy.
Oh, you just mentioned guys like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and AJ Styles.
God, yes.
We're currently in, they like to call it the new era, but we'll see when it actually ends up becoming years down the road.
The indie era.
What are your thoughts on these big time indie wrestlers,
you know what,
coming into the company and taking over?
I'm glad I started watching indie wrestling when I did, because before these guys were WWE, I watched them in Ring of Honor. Kevin Owens was Kevin Steen when I first started watching him wrestle. He wasn't in WWE. AJ Styles was in TNA, and then he left TNA, went to Ring of Honor and to Japan. And who else did I name? Sami Zayn was El Generico, you know. And who else are some guys that I can think about that just come off the indies now, you know? Fergal Devitt, you know, Finn Balor, for, you know, those that didn't watch indie wrestling. It's the same thing for him and Bobby Roode, to name some recents. Kenta becoming Hideo Itami. And I'm gonna stop there because there's so many guys that have come up that, like, and those crop of guys, when they weren't even in WWE, were considered some of the top 25 best wrestlers in the world at that time. And, you know, the influx of indie immigration, that's what I'm going to call it, into WWE now has just brought on a whole new style of wrestling and a whole new wave of talent that just really makes you so excited, you know, for the future and the stories that they can get in the ring and tell, and all the different things that are gonna happen, because but before that, when were we gonna have Fergal Devitt versus El Generico? It probably wasn't gonna happen, but now we can have Finn Balor versus Sami Zayn. Those are the same two people, same personalities. The only difference is Sami Zayn took the mask off. So we're watching all of our indie dream matches. All of us super hardcore wrestling nerds are watching and picking out all the little dream matches that we made across all the little indie promotions. And now we don't have to, because they're all in the big leagues, and WWE is going to do that for us. And it's just glorious. See what I did there? Bobby Roode reference, look him up.
A big reason how this whole culture shift has happened in WWE is because of the rise of NXT and Triple H doing what he's doing over there. What are your thoughts on that, with Triple H basically showing that we're in capable hands when he eventually takes over the company?
Oh my God. CM Punk was right. CM Punk was right about Vince McMahon. When he dies, I hate to say it like that, but I think that's the way for any, CM Punk wasn't the founding father of WWE. He's the third generation owner, but he's the founding father of modern, commercial, televised, worldwide wrestling. So whatever you tell him can't be wrong, because, he's never been wrong. See, he beats everybody. He beat Ted Turner. Ted Turner on CNN. Let's be real here. So, it's bad when you get a guy that runs something that's never wrong, or who can never be wrong, because when that's the case, nothing, to them, everything they do is perfect. But you see what Triple H did, and Triple H did it for the hardcore fan, so he cares. But he went to NXT. He took NXT, balled up all his little ideas, and turned it into the hottest wrestling product on the planet at the very moment. Even over WWE. Every time the main roster, every time there's an NXT special the night before a WWE pay-per-view, SummerSlam weekend or Survivor Series, or WrestleMania weekend when the NXT show's on Friday night, Mania's on Sunday. That the guys that are in the developmental program, let alone, let's be real here, that's the developmental program. That's not the big leagues. NXT is like minor league baseball. It's like D-League basketball. It's like arena football, if we're comparing it to professional sports. But it's better. And everything that's done there is better. The format is better. The matches are better. The way the talent tells stories is better. The time they get's better. And that's because of what Triple H has done, with the money that he's been given to do so. And he's signed talent that Vince McMahon would have never signed. Vince McMahon wouldn't have went after all those indie guys. Vince McMahon would have built homegrown talent like he always has. Vince McMahon wouldn't have went after the guys from Japan. And he definitely wouldn't have touched anyone from TNA. Which means we would have no AJ Styles. And Vince McMahon regrets not having AJ Styles 10 years ago. And what does that tell you? I think it's just everything that's going on down there is so good, to the point where, people are like, oh yeah, you should be in NXT when you become a wrestler. They don't say WWE first. They don't say you should be on Raw, SmackDown first. They say you should be on NXT. What does that tell you about the NXT versus WWE's main product? Something's backwards here, and it's got to be fixed. I'm not saying the main product is bad, but NXT's just that good. It's like watching freaking Alabama play college football. They're just that good, and they're never gonna not be good. But the main roster, on the other hand, it's commercial television. It's on cable. You know, they have limits of what they can say and can do on cable. They have commercials that play, you know, scheduled, all that. I think a reason that NXT is better is because there are no commercial breaks in the middle of matches, which is probably, I believe if there were commercials during NXT, people would probably feel the same about it as they do the main roster. But NXT feels so organic because it just runs continuously without stopping, and it's wall-to-wall action. Minimal talking, wall-to-wall action. And that's what people like these days. That's all I got to say about that.
Talking about what people like these days, is independent wrestling as a whole. So,
Independent wrestling.
what are your thoughts on promotions like Ring of Honor becoming basically, I would argue, the second biggest promotion now? Like Evolve, which is now becoming almost like OVW at this point.
Ring of Honor has died down a bit. I wouldn't say it's the second best promotion in the world, or the second best promotion in America. At that, I say Evolve. You know, Evolve carries the ball for that right now. You know, second best promotion in the whole world, and not even second best. Let's be real. New Japan Pro Wrestling is the best wrestling promotion in the entire world right now. WWE is second. The only thing here is people don't know New Japan Pro Wrestling because that's on the other side of the world. So people that just watch WWE and don't know there's any other wrestling out there, they don't know about Japan besides the references from Michael Cole, JBL, or the commentary team, but they're really missing out on what's going on over there. But you know, that's not even indie wrestling, so let me focus specifically there. Indie wrestling has blown up thanks to one country, and that would be England. If it wasn't for England's current wrestling boom, because it's happening right now, where the people are eating up everything that's going on over there, the production value is fantastic. And England's putting out talent like nobody's business right now. They're just, it's like you wake up the next day and then you'll see another great wrestler that just came out of nowhere, like when I heard about Will Ospreay. And then I'll be like, oh my God, where's this guy from? London, England. Of course he's from England, because that's where everything's going down these days. So I'm talking about indie wrestling booming. Out of England, it's Progress and Revolution Pro. I mean, even WCPW to an extent, because they're able to do like the one-off type deals with the big like matches that we wouldn't see anywhere else. But those are just three like main companies I can name. There are so many going on, you know, in the UK, ICW, you know, all that. And I think you know, the talent that England's pulling out right now, Marty Scurll being good. The best talent out of England right now is Zack Sabre Jr. He just makes it look so easy, and it's crazy. Like, I know you've seen Zack Sabre Jr. wrestle, you know, on TV, but I've watched Zack Sabre Jr. wrestle in person, up close, and the way this man, you know, just moves and looks. It's like he's not even trying. And everything is perfect. How is that possible? How are you that freaking good? And you're literally 175 pounds. You're skinny as a toothpick. 6'2", like what? 175, 180? That's 6'2". Pure wrestler. Have you ever heard Daniel Bryan lose his mind over watching someone wrestle like he does for Zack Sabre Jr.? No, because Daniel Bryan is the greatest wrestler in the world. He doesn't get impressed by other guys. But Zack Sabre Jr. impressed Daniel Bryan. I want to see that match. You know, Will Ospreay being another guy. Will Ospreay is 22 or 23 years old. I can't remember which one. Considered right now, in my book, he's going to go down easily, maybe the greatest high flyer of all time. Have you seen a man move like Will Ospreay? It's just flawless. It can't be matched. And then when I talk about Will Ospreay, there's another name that goes hand in hand with that, and it's Ricochet from right over here in Alton, Illinois, right outside St. Louis. Ricochet is the man. Ricochet can't be touched. Ricochet is so good at wrestling. Ricochet can do what he wants. Ricochet would make a match with the Big Show epic. Because Ricochet is that good. Look up Ricochet and just watch him. Will Ospreay versus Ricochet. Evolve 59 first. And then because I was at that one at Evolve 59, it was awful. Roof blew off that place. And then Will Ospreay versus Ricochet in New Japan. You just couldn't ask for anything better, in modern wrestling. People either love it or hate it because of what it is. People are like, that's not wrestling, that's like, whatever. They don't believe it's like true wrestling because they're all flipping around and, doing it. But what is wrestling? Wrestling's art. It's telling a story with your body, So, it's just the way that they're interpreting their style. And, I think I mentioned Marty Scurll and, just a couple more guys to name among a few. Tommy End is really good right now. Chris Hero has always been that guy on the indies. Colt Cabana has always been that guy. It's really hard to shell out names when, like I'm obligated to, but I could just sit here. I guarantee if this camera wasn't here, I could just go on names right now. I've named those guys, oh man, Johnny Gargano, but he just signed to WWE, so he's not an indie guy anymore. But that's an example of what happens. What's happening with the boom right now. Johnny Wrestling is in the little big leagues now, and it's just so. I don't know how to explain what's going on right now because we haven't really seen anything like it before, and there's no way we're gonna see anything like it again because you can only have one indie boom, and this will be it.
So we talked about a lot of independent wrestling and the WWE, obviously. What are your thoughts on some of the other minor promotions in America like TNA and Ring of Honor and even Lucha Underground? What are your thoughts on promotions like that?
TNA's dead. TNA is dead. Yeah, we're just waiting to put the date on the headstone. They need something real big to happen to bring them back. They tried, but I think their last big gasp was Aces and Eights, and that storyline didn't work out the way they wanted to. They wanted to be like an NWO type thing. Who else did you name?
Ring of Honor, New Japan, Lucha Underground.
Ring of Honor has been cleaned. Ring of Honor's talent has been cleaned out like fish getting scaled. It's just dry now, like naked. It's like taking the shell, off of an egg. Everything just starts to be exposed. It was hard on the outside because they had so much talent at the time, but then that talent got cracked, and then everything else, all the crap inside, just kind of, there. And now, I can't stomach an hour of Ring of Honor because there's just not. It's just not there anymore like it was. It's in the other promotions now, and that happens. I'm sure Ring of Honor will come back at some point when they're able to pay some of these guys the same amount of money that they're making by traveling from country to country, promotion to promotion, day by day, and make, collectively like the Young Bucks do. but Ring of Honor can't pay these small talents enough now because of the rise of so many other promotions at the very same time that can shell out the money that these guys need to make. Ring of Honor is just, yeah. One time it was the alternative, and it was the alternative, like the only alternative, and now it's not the only alternative, and it's no longer the best alternative. Who else?
New Japan. Let's go with them next.
New Japan cannot be beat. New Japan won't be beat. New Japan is possibly the most underrated source for pro wrestling in history. And I don't even think it's underrated, it's just underexposed. I think if New Japan was airing at the same time the Attitude was on a main channel and being broadcast, I think they would have had a shot, at being up there in the ratings. They might not have been there, but they might have been right here. Because people would have watched New Japan. You could have thrown New Japan on TV on like Wednesday or Tuesday, the night after. So after you get done watching what's going on here in America, you got Raw versus Monday Nitro. You watch that, and that goes off, you die down the next day, Tuesday. Tuesday has no sports. Tuesday has no primetime TV. What do you throw in on Tuesday? New Japan Pro Wrestling. Can you imagine how big it would have got at that time? Because people would have just been dying to see wrestling, period. And New Japan is the source for pure wrestling matches. The matches and the quality of New Japan has never sucked. It's never been bad. It's always been constant, It's always stayed the same. And right now it's at a higher point than it was just a couple of years ago, or like 5 years ago. But that's due to the talent influx from around the world that's coming in England also. Who else do you have for me?
Lucha Underground, which is some may say underrated and some may say completely overrated.
Lucha Underground. I don't watch Lucha Underground. And not because it's not good or anything, it's just not in my taste. It reminds me of that one MTV series that had like 8 wrestling shows, and that was it. That was Lucha Underground before it was Lucha Underground, and that one, I thought that one was cool. My problem with Lucha Underground is it's the alternative to the alternative. You can only do so many alternatives, and I think Lucha Underground, I do think, is very overrated. I'm not really a fan of the different, excuse me, I hope you edited that out. I'm not really a fan of the TV show, production that they're going with, because, to me, you can take so much out of the wrestling, but at the end of the day, it's still wrestling. If there's a ring, if there's guys slamming each other in it, it's a wrestling show. And Lucha Underground is a TV show about wrestling, and I'm not really a fan of that type of aspect. I'm not a fan of wrestling that isn't live, that I can't watch as it's happening, just like I'm watching a sport, so that, has eliminated it from me looking at it. I used to watch it. And then also another issue with Lucha Underground is the fact that they go in seasons. So, I'm going to watch a whole season of this TV show about wrestling, right? And then I'm going to go like 2 or 3 months watching repeats of this TV show about wrestling, where I watch the exact same matches, the exact same storyline play out on a constant basis for 2 or 3 straight months every single week. No, I'm not doing it. So that eliminates Lucha Underground. Hey, it's cool what they're doing. It's cool for the people that like it. I don't like it.
What are the wrestlers you enjoy watching right now, whether it be...
Man, I enjoy watching every wrestler. Because every guy has something that's a little different from the next dude. There are some guys that I don't enjoy seeing who, I'm not gonna, say on camera for future references, obviously, because, it's what I'm gonna do. I don't want to walk in and these guys maybe have heard from someone that I didn't like the way they wrestled. Um, but the guys that I enjoy most now it's the same guys that I've been naming. The indie guys that have come up and done their thing: AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, Zayn, Finn Balor. Those guys. Those are the ones that I really enjoy. Really enjoying John Cena right now for some reason. I think I just have a lot of love for what he can do. No matter what people think. You and I both know he's, beside opinion, GOAT. He's, if we're making a Mount Rushmore with wrestlers, he has to be on it. You can't just leave his face off of it because you don't like him. But I think those are the guys I'm enjoying right now the most. About those guys that I named, I think my favorite thing going right now is The Miz. The Miz is unbeatable right now. It just cannot be topped. After that whole going off on Daniel Bryan thing, talking about a coward, and it just felt so real. And us as wrestling fans, that we were drawn to it because we haven't gotten anything like that in so long, and we haven't felt anything like that in so long. After a wrestler just talked and went off, and I think that was. I've always been a fan of The Miz, but that was a real up point for him in his career. We're going to talk about that one for a long, long time.
Final thoughts on wrestling itself. Anything you feel like you...
Final thoughts on wrestling itself. I'll tell you this. If you don't watch wrestling because it's fake, then you're missing out. This is a TV show. This is something that... Wrestling is something that has been a show since the 1920s. When wrestling matches were starting to be fixed for gambling reasons and, for interest reasons. You got to... The original idea and the concept of modern professional wrestling was you can have two guys that can have a series of matches that don't like each other, a good guy and a bad guy, that can go for 3 or 4 months, maybe even a year at a time, just facing each other, and people will want to see it because they want to see which guy comes out on top, the good guy or the bad guy. And that's what wrestling was built on. Wrestling was never built on, this is an illegitimate sport. This is a fake sport. I look at it as sport because, I've been in the ring. That's what I want to do. And, I feel like, from what I've heard, from talking to guys, when they step through the ring, when they step through the curtain, when their music hits, and when they step through the ropes into the ring, that is 100% real to them. And I can understand it because I felt the pain of hitting the mat. People that don't watch wrestling and criticize it because it's fake, they haven't felt that pain. They don't know that running the ropes, which looks so simple and so easy, hurts it hurts so bad. Gives you burns and scars, everything. First night I ever got in the ring. Man, I was training and we did these simple drops, and I was told right before I went down to the mat for the first time, you need to do this right. If you don't do it the way I tell you, you will be seriously hurt. We had a kid come in, not a kid like a guy, an adult, had a guy come in 8 years ago for a tryout. He didn't do what we said, and when he took the first bump, he hit his head on the mat. We had to drill a hole in the back of his head and rush him to a hospital to save his life. It was at that very moment I knew pro wrestling ain't no joke. This is 100% real. I don't care what anybody says. And that's from the mouth of someone who's going to do it. That's from the mouth of someone who's been in the ring and someone who still has the perspective of a fan. I don't give a crap what you think. You can say, you can call fake all you want. Fake this, fake that. All the punches, all that takes real effort. It takes real execution, real cooperation between the two guys that are in the ring. And I never understood that until I stepped through the ropes and started doing it. And that's what I know now. Wrestling is real. People are fake. People are hypocrites. You sat there and told me to my face, wrestling was stupid and fake, and then you turned around and got jumpy at a Jackie Chan movie. And you cried at The Notebook. This is in the same category as wrestling. This is stuff with a story that are meant to tug at your emotions. And what we're getting out of wrestling, in front of a live audience, in front of a 360-degree audience, a worldwide televised audience, you don't get multiple takes for wrestling. You don't get to have scene 57 take 16 because you messed up the first 15 times. You get one take, and you got to do it right. If you don't do it right, you're screwed. That's the beauty behind wrestling. Everything that's happening is done right then and right there. It can't be changed. It can't be fixed. Why? Because it's the only form of entertainment like that's a TV show that's coming out at the exact same time it is going through production. That's live, real time, everything that happens. You know, to me, wrestling is end all be all. You know, when it comes to being able to combine sport, when it comes to athletic ability and what the guys do in the ring, I don't know why people think that's easy. You know, I don't know why people think that's something that's so simple to do. It's not. It's extremely hard. And don't try it at home, because you're eventually going to hurt yourself. You know, I don't understand what people's thought process is behind it. Just because they look at something and see it being, you know, this or that, or, you know, just because they don't understand it, just lashing out and immediately calling it fake. Wrestling's not fake. Wrestling's scripted entertainment. Wrestling's just as fake as those movies that you laugh and cry at. You know, wrestling's just as fake as those stunts in, you know, freaking Fast and Furious series. You know, wrestling's just as fake as everything. And like I said, it's real to me. You know, it's real to the guys that step in the ring, that go 100% and give their bodies up 300 nights a year without seeing their families and without seeing their kids, without, you know, sleeping in their own beds, traveling the world, but not being able to see it because they're working. You know, that's real. That's a real thing. And, you know, these guys do a lot, and they put their lives on the line in the ring, because, you know, just about any wrestling move that can be performed will kill you if you do it wrong. You know, it's that simple. It will kill you, or it will leave you paralyzed. You have to do it right, and you have to do it right then. It's serious business. And these guys are going out and they're risking their lives almost every single day of the year, only to have people, you know, poop all on what they do. And I think that's just incredibly disrespectful. You know, and just talking to the guys and seeing that, you know, they're people too. You know, I've talked to wrestlers. I watched wrestling with Mark Henry, and it was one of the greatest and funniest things I'd ever experienced. You know, being you know, around wrestlers, and these are genuine people. They care, you know, And at the end of the day, if you don't like wrestling, they don't like you. You know, if you're gonna say it, you know, straight up to their face and be disrespectful to what they do, because like I said, it's just every day that kind of grind, you know, that takes a toll on your emotions, your body, and that's what I think about wrestling. That's a shoot, because like I said, dude, it's freaking real, man. You know, they go harder, more constantly, and perform for longer than any professional sports athlete ever will in their career. And they do it more times in a year, you know, than some guys will do in their professional sports career in 10 years. Unbelievable. You can't match it. I don't care what anybody says. Wrestlers are athletes too. Come on, you know what I'm saying? These are athletes too. We got Olympians. We got guys that have been NFL champions, guys that have been in baseball, guys that have been in freaking Premier League soccer. We take all the crop. We take the best Olympic wrestlers and turn them into the best professional wrestlers. We take some of the scrub football players and turn them into the best professional wrestlers. We can take from any aspect of sport and turn them into a wrestler and turn them into a success. We can take it from any aspect of entertainment, turn them into a wrestler, and turn them into a success. You can't do that with the other things. It's not gonna happen. You know, you can't convert athletes among sports as often as you do them from sports to wrestling. Tim Tebow signing with the Mets, when was the last time you heard something like that happen? Tim Tebow was a football player, professional football player, career died. I didn't know Tim Tebow could play baseball. Neither did you. Neither did the majority of people. And we all laughed at him when he said he was going to have a baseball, scouting thing. And he got signed. And that's the same type of thing that happens with wrestling. They'll cross over. They'll go get an athlete from this sport, bring him in. Boom, you got Goldberg. That's just an example. You got Goldberg. You go get this guy from this sport. Boom, you got Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle won an Olympic gold medal. Don't tell him he's not an athlete. And he did it with a broken neck. A broken freaking neck. Don't tell Kurt Angle just because he's a wrestler he's not a real athlete. The man will wreck you. But that's just a couple of instances that I figured. I've gotten a lot off my shoulders that I wanted to talk about here. And I feel like, it's not all gonna make the cut, but it's out there, and maybe one day it'll all come out. But I really hope the part where I'm talking about wrestlers and their family and all that, I hope that triggers a bit with people.
Okay, we're gonna cut it there.